Welcome to F4 Talks. With me is Josef Olmert again. Those of you who watch our YouTube channel know that Joseph is one of the leading scholars on Israel. He has been a peace negotiator. He fought in the Yom Kippur War. He is a scholar. He is from a leading Israeli political family. I could go on, but I will stop because he needs no introduction. Today, Joseph and I are going to discuss the ceasefire, the war, and what comes next. And we are going to focus our discussion not just on Iran, but also Hezbollah. Joseph, welcome.
Thank you so much, and it's always a pleasure. Mr. Singh, you run a great operation, and I'm getting a lot of comments about my appearances with Fair Observer that are almost all of them are very complimentary. And if they are not, it's about me, not about you. So you mentioned Lebanon, so I need to give you the latest news to be relevant. And of course, we talk on the 22nd of April, so we need to explain.
And we're talking at 6:10 p.m. on
the latest,
Wednesday, the 27th of April, so that everyone knows. Wednesday, 27th April, 6:10 p.m. Shoot.
Eastern Standard Time. So
Eastern Standard Time.
I just need to tell you that the IDF spokesman announced about a couple of hours ago, that there was an encounter with Hezbollah about 8 or 10 miles from the border, in which over 20 Hezbollah people were killed by the IDF. And then Hezbollah announced that they don't recognize the ceasefire anymore, but they will decide what to do according to circumstances. So it is a very fragile, precarious situation in the south of Lebanon, and the Israelis continue to act in villages that are already under their control to demolish Hezbollah terror infrastructure, as they call it. And the reason that I mentioned it in the beginning of the discussion is to simply put it all in perspective, because you need to know, and I'm sure that you understand it, that this ceasefire in Lebanon was forced brutally upon the end of Netanyahu. He can tell you stories now that he was in touch with Trump. Don't accept it. He was forced without any question to accept this ceasefire, and it was deliberately done by the Americans as part of their negotiations with Iran, and the Israelis felt that they were again robbed of their ability to deal the final blow on Hezbollah, like it was in the previous ceasefire and like it was in the big war in the fall of 2024. So that puts it all in some kind of perspective.
So let me stop you, because you've given a lot of backstory. Give us a history of Israel's relations with Hezbollah, because back in the day,
that's a
Israel went into Lebanon not to fight Hezbollah. I'm talking of the early 80s, but to destroy the Palestinians in Lebanon, the Palestinian Liberation Organization armed forces. Hezbollah was only born in the early 1980s. So give us context, give us an Israeli point of view.
I'll give you the factual point of view, because facts are facts. Hezbollah was basically established already in 1981, before the war known as Peace for Galilee that was supposed to destroy, as you said, the PLO. At that time, they were called Al-Amal al-Islami, which was the Amal movement that was already there, but the Islamic wing of it, which already in 1981, under the leadership of the Musawi family from the Bekaa Valley, they were adhering to the Iranian Revolution and declaring their loyalty to the Islamic Republic. And the reason that I say it is that, yes, Hezbollah, in the name Hezbollah, was established after 1982 as a result of the war between Israel and the PLO in Lebanon, but it would have been established at any rate, and it was basically established at any rate, because one understood already then that the Iranian Revolution would like to expand their influence in the Middle East by using the Shi'i Muslim populations in countries that were volatile. In that case,
I'll stop you for just a moment. For our viewers and listeners, they must remember that the Iranian Revolution occurs in 1979. It is a bit like the 1917 Soviet Revolution. It wants to export Islamic revolution all the way from Turkey to Malaysia. And one of the things the Islamic revolution wanted was to mobilize Shias in the near neighborhood at a very early stage.
And of course, what happened in Lebanon was that they did mobilize Hezbollah because they had a good cause. The cause was to remove the Israelis from the occupation of parts of Lebanon. But at that time, and
I must give one more data point to be balanced. That yes, this is what Iran wanted, but as soon as you had the Iranian Revolution, Iraq under Saddam Hussein attacked Iran, and they had an 8-year war from 1980 to 1988. And the assumption was this was a weak regime. This regime would implode, and Iraq would seize a lot of territory in Iran.
That's true, but the point is that with regard to Lebanon, there was another element that doesn't exist now, but existed then. It was still the Assad Ba'ath regime in Damascus, which was pro-Iran, the only Arab country that was pro-Iran in the war between Iran and Iraq, for obvious reasons that we shall not get into now. And the Syrians were the ones who basically gave the backing.
Because they were Alawites, they were Shias. It was because of that reason.
Closer to the Shia, put it this way, and they supported Hezbollah from day one. And that really made Hezbollah immediately an effective organization, or at least more effective than what it would have been otherwise, because of the presence of Syria in Lebanon and the influence that Syria had at that time, joint border and all that comes with it. So Hezbollah basically became the sworn enemy of Israel as of 1982. And after 18 years in 2000, in May of 2000, then Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, decided to cut Israeli losses in South Lebanon and unilaterally withdraw from South Lebanon under circumstances that were still debatable, that are still debatable today, but at any rate, at this time, it seemed to be the right decision. However, Hezbollah understood that they are strong and Israel is weak, and Nasser Allah gave a speech in Bin Jbeil, and I will mention it specifically because it's important, in the place called Bin Jbeil, in which he developed the theory about the weakness of Israel, about the fact that Israel basically is having, as he said, atomic weapons, air force and all that, but it's an unnatural, artificial entity, a weak society, and it's just a question of time until it will be destroyed. Why do I mention Bin Jbeil? Because now Bin Jbeil is under complete control of the IDF, and Bin Jbeil looks, unfortunately for the people there, almost like parts of Gaza look. And Nasser Allah, of course, is dead, and Israel is well and alive and well, and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that Hezbollah proved on many occasions that they are basically not a real Lebanese organization. Let me explain this point, Atul. Yes, they operate in Lebanon. Yes, they rely on manpower, which is mostly the Shia population of South Lebanon, South Beirut, and the Bekaa Valley in the east of Lebanon. But they are there to serve, in the first place, Iranian interests. And that we saw on occasions, the most dramatic of which was their involvement in the Syrian civil war, in which they really sacrificed thousands of their people in a war in order to support and back up the Assad regime that was the interest of Iran. Why was it so important to the Iranians? And why do I consider Hezbollah, and I will call it specifically, a division in the Iranian army, which is based in Lebanon? Why was it so important? Exactly for what happened since 2023, and most importantly, in this year, the war between Israel and Iran. The Iranians kept Hezbollah as an important organization that has become the most formidable military power in Lebanon, by far stronger than the Lebanese state and the Lebanese army, because they wanted to use them as another front for Israel in case of a war between Iran and Israel. In 2006, When they started the troubles with Israel by kidnapping the 2 Israeli soldiers, the Israelis retaliated by attacking back. The results of the war at that time did not seem so decisive, and still the Iranians, I tell you this out of knowledge, the Iranians were very unhappy with Hassan Nasrallah for provoking the war at a time when they were not ready for it, because they saw the war as a possibility in which Israel would destroy Hezbollah and therefore weaken the overall Iranian planning to the future war with Israel. So we have to look at Hezbollah, therefore, in terms of part and parcel, an integral part of the overall Iranian planning to the possibility of war with Israel. That's the way to look at it. That's the way to look at it. There is no Lebanese interest as such in war with Israel. Israel does not hold any Lebanese territory, did not hold until now any Lebanese territory. And most of the Lebanese political factions and communities say it specifically. They say it's not our war. It is Iran's war.
All
So
right.
that's the overall context of what's happening with Hezbollah.
All right.
Now,
So
let
may
me
I?
just say something else here with respect, just very, very briefly. Because of what I said, and one, of course, can debate it and say, no, it's not the case, whatever, but according to my logic and understanding, exactly because of what I said, I was not happy about the performance of the Israelis during the big war with Hamas in Gaza, the way they allowed Hezbollah to provoke troubles for so long until they finally, in the summer of 2024, decided to deal with Hezbollah, because that was interpreted in Iran, that's the point, as a sign of Israel's vulnerability to a multi-front war. And therefore, I'm now unhappy about the fact that Israel caved in to the pressures of Trump to stop the war with Hezbollah, because again it was interpreted in Iran as another sign that Israel is unable to conduct a war on more than one or two fronts, and that Hezbollah can still be a useful tool in the overall planning of Iran to the confrontation with Israel. And this is therefore, in my opinion, one of the main reasons why this ceasefire with Hezbollah, to start with, was a mistake on the part of the Americans and on the part of the Israelis who caved in to this pressure.
All right. So let me give a counter view. Stephen Zonas and many scholars and many people who lectured at my university, Oxford, and I attended, I believe, if I remember correctly, almost every lecture on the Middle East over 2 years. That is how I got a basic understanding. I'm not a scholar of the region like you, but, I have some idea. And the counter narrative to what you've said was Hezbollah was born because the Israelis intervened in Lebanon, because elite politics in Lebanon for decades had marginalized the Shias. During the time of the Ottomans, there was a Sunni elite in that region, and there was no Lebanon. The Ottoman Empire basically controlled all of modern-day Lebanon, Syria, Israel, all the way to Mecca. So all these states are a product of post-World War I, Sykes-Picot, etc., etc. And after the French took over, they played divide and rule, and of course they favored the Christians, who had a disproportionate role in Lebanese society. And after the Christians, it was the Sunnis, and the Shias basically were the marginalized element in this new state of Lebanon. And at some point, which is after 1979, the Islamic Revolution of Iran, the Shias rallied because of support of Iran, and Hezbollah was born, and Hezbollah provided social services, which the Lebanese state, which is corrupt and dysfunctional and inefficient, failed to do. And therefore, Hezbollah now has emerged as a state within the state. And yes, it is oppressive. Yes, if you are gay, you probably will not live very long. It is very hard line. It is oppressive. But at the same time, Hezbollah is a mass-based reaction to the elite politics and corruption of Lebanon. It is based in a conservative movement. It is the sans-culotte, if we are to use a French word, the lower classes coming to the fore. And the people who fight for Hezbollah are fighting out of a sense of Shia identity and out of newly discovered pride, and they are fighting to find their place in the sun. And yes, they ally with Hamas, but during the Syrian civil war, Hamas and Hezbollah were on opposite sides because there was a Shia-Sunni division in Syria. And Hezbollah, as per these critics, only attacks Israel when Israel is aggressive and when Israel attacks an ally. What do you say to this narrative?
Well, the narrative is interesting. I wrote a lot about the rise of the Shia in Lebanon, so we talk here.
I mean, you're a scholar. You are the scholar. I'm just reflecting, one point of view. You are
By the way, at the very end, just to tell you that Hamas was not opposite side to Hezbollah in the Syrian civil war. Mm-hmm. Hamas was supporting the Assad regime. Also, and then we'll move on to the main core of your question. Even the Israeli Communist Party, which is mostly Arab, they supported Bashar Assad in the war and supported, in that case, the intervention of Hezbollah because it was considered by them to be the most anti-Israel power. And that exactly was the interest of Hamas.
Just very important for our listeners to know that the Ba'athist Party in Syria was a socialist party. And it was led by Alawites, so-called. And similarly, Saddam Hussein was also from the Ba'athist Party.
Yeah, but they didn't like each other for all kinds of historic reasons, the two wings of the Ba'ath Party. But the point is that the support to Hezbollah in the Syrian civil war by Hamas was on the basis of them being the most anti-Israel element, and Bashar Assad therefore should stay in order to prevent Syria from being in a peace with Israel. But let's get back. Look, the real Shia revolution in Lebanon started in the 1960s with a guy called Musa Sadr. The Musa Sadr was of Persian, Iraqi, Lebanese origin. He moved to Lebanon and he started the Shia revolution of Lebanon already in the 1960s, far before the Iranian Revolution. He did it as a Lebanese patriot who wanted to strengthen the Lebanese state by giving equal rights to the Shias, which, by the way, the revolution of the Shia status in Lebanon, you'll be surprised to hear, that started with the French. The French in 1926, during the Mandate, for the first time recognized the Shias as a separate Islamic community than the Sunnis. Mm-hmm. Okay, so again, you can argue divide and empire and control between the Sunnis and the French and all that. So they recognize the Shias. But so Musa Sadr was
just to stop you there, under the Ottomans, the Shias never really had the same rights, and they were certainly.
It's even worse than that. The Ottomans gave status to Christians and Jews according to the Islamic concepts of the Ayla Dima, as they call it, but not to the Shias. And by the way, even today in Turkey, to say I'm a Shia, it's not so convenient and comfortable, trust me. And you can ask Shias from Turkey, they will tell you. At any rate, Musa Sadr started all this in the 1960s. And he was not connected to Iran. And after the Iranian Revolution in 1979...
Musa al-Sadr, the man you're mentioning, it was a Shia scholar.
Yes. But let's concentrate on... He did not intervene in the Lebanese civil war of the 1975, 76, 77, what they call the Harb al-Sanatain, the war of the 2 years. He did not intervene. He kept neutrality. Because he was...
Just very quickly, just so that my understanding is correct, a clarification from you. He founded the movement of the dispossessed and the Amal movement. He championed social justice and equality. And he wanted a unified secular Lebanon that recognized the rights of all sects, including
Exactly,
the
and he
Shias.
did it as a Lebanese patriot. In their meetings, the Lebanese flag was there, and so on and so forth.
Got it.
He visited Libya in 1979 and was murdered there by Gaddafi, exactly because he was not a supporter of the radical cause in the Lebanese civil war.
78, if I remember correctly, right? Not
Yeah,
79.
sorry, 1978 already. You're right.
Yeah,
So okay,
before the Iranian Revolution.
before, yeah,
Yeah.
but because he was not, a radical Shi'i the
Yeah.
way he was supposed to be according to.
This question for
Now,
you: why did Gaddafi kill him? Why?
because Gaddafi took revenge of the fact that Musa Sadr was neutral in the Syrian civil war. As simple as that. But look, the main point is, and here is the main point, and I need to make this point. The Iranian Revolution 1979, at any rate, would have established a radical movement like Hezbollah with or without Israeli occupation. The Israeli occupation gave them stimulus, gave them the backing, gave them the incentive beyond any others, but they would have done it at any rate because what they did also in the case of Yemen, what they did in the case of Iraq, and so on and so forth. So, yes, the Israeli occupation definitely gave the impetus for the rise of Hezbollah. And yes, as you said, Hezbollah was a civic organization alongside the military terrorist organization because of all the reasons that you said.
Yeah.
But in a case like
as one Lebanese person told me very well, very pithily, he said that yes, they do a lot of bad things, but they collect the rubbish.
yeah, that's true. That's very true. But they
Yeah.
do it with Iranian money. They do it with Iranian money and only with Iranian money. And by the way, smuggling of drugs and all that, mostly from the Bekaa Valley. But look,
But that has been going on for centuries. The
okay,
Bekaa Valley, it's not.
Yeah, okay. But that they did it. Okay. Now the point really is another point here that I have to emphasize. Why are we having to explain what Hezbollah is all about and not believe to what they say? Why don't we believe to what they say? They say that they want to destroy Israel for this or that reason. And they say it. They're proud of it. They don't deny it. They say it. So when we come to the situation now, and that's the point that I would like to emphasize, another point that I would like to emphasize. I would like to have peace with Lebanon. And in a case like that, Israel should withdraw completely from every centimeter of land that has been taken over in the last few weeks. The international border should be recognized. There should be peace relations with Lebanon. Who would be against it? Hezbollah. So if you want to achieve peace with Lebanon, which is the supposed interest of the Americans and the Israelis and the Lebanese other than Hezbollah, destroy Hezbollah. But when you put pressure on Israel to stop the war with Hezbollah at a time when they are almost on the ropes and you are about to deal the final blow, you make them look like they are still powerful and formidable enough force to prevent the Lebanese from doing what they should do. Therefore, I will tell you right now, let me just finish, please. I am not impressed. I am not impressed with this peace talk so-called between Israel and Lebanon. So long as Hezbollah is powerful in Lebanon, there is not going to be peace between Israel and Lebanon. Period. And never mind all the charade and all the show-off, and tomorrow there will be another meeting and all that. I don't buy that. And you will be able to interview me again and ask me, were you right or not? We'll talk about that. It is not going to be because Hezbollah will be there to prevent it. Against the will of most of the Lebanese people.
Okay, let me ask you a very simple question. And that question is, are you really close to a coup de grace? Meaning, the final blow against
Hezbollah, yes.
Yes. Because mowing the lawn hasn't worked. You killed Hassan Nasrallah. You had the fantastic pager operation, which was
on the 8th of April.
Brilliant.
And the 8th of April, we inflicted a huge blow on Hezbollah. And the blow on Hezbollah was devastating. No. What does it mean, coup de grace? That's also a question of a definition. To dismantle Hezbollah completely between the two of us, it's nonsense. To weaken Hezbollah to the point where they will be totally ineffective, also in Lebanon itself, that could have happened. That could have happened. That's the way I look at it, as coup de grace. And then Hezbollah, if there would still be a political party calling itself this name or that name, either in alliance with Amal or not, that's another story. But you can really weaken these organizations. It's not about killing the ideology, because people say, how can you kill an ideology? You can't kill an ideology, but you can weaken the people who bear the arms in support of that ideology to the point where they will be far less effective than what they are now. And we were on the verge of doing it. And we may still be on the verge of doing it if this situation that we described in the beginning of this conversation, that the ceasefire is very fragile and precarious, will continue. So it remains to be seen.
So let me ask you another question. And this is a question a lot of people are asking around the world. And this is a humanitarian question. Over 1.2 million people, roughly 20% of Lebanon's population, are currently displaced. Figures for casualties run as high as 2,400 killed and over 7,500 injured. Israel has hit not just Hezbollah sites, but also apartment buildings. A lot of civilians are suffering. What do you say to the argument that this Hezbollah is a pretext? What Israel wants is the fulfillment of a greater Israel project and the waters of the Litani River.
We don't need the water of the Litani River. We solved our water problem. Those who say it simply are not aware of the fact that the desalination project solved this.
You want more fertile land, you want more water, and then Israeli settlers will take over the vacated Lebanese territory. So this is, in some ways, another Nakba.
Okay, so that's why the Israelis left Lebanon already in 2000, because they were so much in favor of all that. Look, let's be serious about all this. First of all, those who talk about displaced people in Lebanon never said a word about displaced people in the north of Israel. Are you aware of the fact that the north of Israel is devastated? The north of Israel...
I'm well aware, because some of my friends and their families live there. Okay. And people who live in North Israel have been suffering from a barrage of Hezbollah rockets. And this has happened for years. They've had to move south.
And these are people, I don't know about your friends, but mostly in the north they vote for Likud. And they are not going to vote for Netanyahu now as a result of all that. And yes, Israel is stronger than Hezbollah, so what Israel does causes more damage than what Hezbollah does. And I don't think that Israel has to apologize for being stronger, because in a war you need to win, not to explain that you don't win. But look, by the way, the numbers you gave for 20% of the population of Lebanon is not true. I mean, it's 1 million maybe.
Joseph, please, hold fire. I agree in the war you want to win, but the standards have to be different. Hezbollah is fundamentally a violent organization. It is widely seen as a terrorist organization. It is fanatical. It is fundamentally sectarian. Israel claims to be a democratic state. Israel upholds rule of law. At least that is what Israel claims. So the standards of behavior have to be different for these two entities.
They have to be different up to the point of existence. Okay. You do not have to apply standards that will make your existence untenable as a state. And democracy should not be weak. Democracy should be strong. In order for democracies to really be democratic, and in order to apply these principles to other countries, they need to be strong enough to defeat those who are opposed to all that. Mm-hmm. And yes, there is a humanitarian problem in Lebanon. And the problem was created completely by Hezbollah, because they started the attack on Israel either on the 8th of October 2023 or recently. So,
that point I take, because 7th of October was a brutal, deadly, ruthless, inhuman terrorist strike against Israel.
They joined the day after. Yeah, they started
on the very next day, and this is what viewers forget. Yeah. On the very next day, Hezbollah is not an organization of saints. And the very next day, they attacked Israel.
And as a democratic state, the Israeli army calls upon people to evacuate their areas in order not to be hurt. And even according to Hezbollah, most of the casualties are their soldiers. They don't deny it. And by the way, they don't deny it because they also want to show that they're fighting. And you see, we sacrifice. So
Yes.
the truth of the matter is that a lot of these arguments which you use, of course, what you hear from other people, are the one that they used about Gaza. They just applied them to Lebanon blindly because it's Israel. It's easy to put it on Israel. You know?
But Joseph,
One second, let me just finish. The one point that people forget is, and I would advise you really, forget about me and other scholars, whether they're of this opinion or that opinion. Watch what Lebanese people put on social media. It is unbelievable, the level of hatred to Hezbollah and the justification which refugees are always poor people, whether Arabs or Jews, they are not welcome in other parts of, because populations say you gave in to Hezbollah and now you have to suffer the consequences. The problem really is that by not destroying Hezbollah, we don't solve a humanitarian problem, we just enhance it because Hezbollah will try again. And Hezbollah will try again because their commitment is to do things against Israel in service of the Iranian cause, not in service of Lebanon. So, look, the application of one situation over another is the level of superficiality that not you, my friend, that so many people are applying to the Middle East. You have a war, might is not right. Now, democracy should be strong. Should be strong.
Very quick. Two charges against Israel.
Only two?
Two main. All right. One is the principle of proportionality.
Yes.
And what does that mean? If someone slaps you, you don't chop their hand off, right?
Okay, yeah.
The second is human rights abuses. And even in Christian circles, there is increasing discontent
about Lebanon.
Even with Lebanon, that image of the Israeli soldier smashing an icon of Jesus Christ.
One idiot criminal Israeli soldier did something stupid, is in jail now, and there is a new statute there already. That's exactly what happened when they attacked synagogues and all that in Israel. Look,
my point was that those two charges are there, and that is why it was my job to just point them to you.
Proportionality, when you have an organization that boasts for having tens of thousands of rockets, you don't talk here about a group of scouts boys, that is doing something stupid and then they get banged on their heads. You talk here about the largest, strongest terror organization in the world, according to all accounts. And you know what? I'll be very cynical with you, because this is not a real, what you call in Israel, asbara. I'm not trying to do any PR here, just to give you facts. Yeah. The simple situation is, if they think that they're weaker than the Israelis and they're going to lose, why would you start the war? The same you can go and talk about Hamas. Why did you start something that you knew you're going to lose so much? And that's what people say to them. Look, Israel and Lebanon should make peace. This peace will be possible only if Hezbollah is destroyed. As part of this peace, Israel should withdraw completely to the international border, and there should be a security buffer between Israel and the Litani River that will be monitored by effective forces, unlike what UNIFIL was. So much for the Litani River, so much for everything else. Okay, so we solved this problem.
So let me ask you, let's move on and let's talk about how do you destroy Hezbollah. You've tried the military option, mowing the lawn. You've killed Hassan Nasrallah. You have troops in Lebanon. You occupied Lebanon till 2000. None of that has worked. So
we occupied only a small part of Lebanon, about 80% of the territory, South Lebanon, so not Lebanon altogether.
But
we can weaken Hezbollah to the point where they would not be the force that can decide for the entire Lebanese people and state what to do. That is almost being done and maybe still be done. All this talk about dismantling everything that they have and all that, or Hamas, that is nonsense, and I always thought it was nonsense. The idea is to prevent them from becoming what they used to be, basically the rulers of Lebanon.
So let me ask you something which I'm hearing from some of your fellow countrymen, Israelis. And a lot of Israelis say off the record that, including, your soldiers, intelligence people, diplomats, that ultimately the way forward will have to be a combination of militarily neutralizing Hezbollah and reconstructing the Lebanese state in some form.
That's what I told you just a minute ago. Israel should withdraw to the international border. There should be a stable security zone that separates Israel from what could be another terroristic zone, and there should be a lot of international support for Lebanon. By the way, a lot of Israeli cooperation with Lebanon to help Lebanon. There's no question about it. By the way, the same should be also in the case of Gaza, without getting into all these specific details. And there is no.
So you agree with their point of view, basically.
Of course, I agree with all the point of view, and that's, by the way, something that I agreed with. In the beginning of the war in Lebanon in 1982. I remember that in 1987, a very famous journalist in Haaretz, doesn't matter the name of the journalist, wrote, "How come that Sharon and people that supported him claimed that we didn't know what was going on to happen in Lebanon? In 1982, Dr. Olmert already said Israel is not going to achieve its big goal of new order in Lebanon and all that." So I've always been in favor of Lebanon being a peace partner of Israel. And there's no question about that. So, look.
But for that, Lebanon will have to be effective. Lebanon right now is basically ungovernable, has been.
Because of Hezbollah. But that's the catch-22 here.
No, but also because of elite politics and corruption and patronage. That too.
What do you think? It will change?
Well,
we're talking about Lebanon, right? Look.
Okay.
Look, everything is relative. You talk here about corruption and all that, and where there is no corruption, the Iranian regime is corrupt. I mean, you have stories about the Khamenei family that they have this or that, and so on and so forth.
I mean, look, Bibi Netanyahu, he has.
I heard this rumor. I'm aware
about Israel.
I am aware of these rumors. Yeah, but look, let me tell you something. Yeah. All this, and you lead me all the time to say the same. All this depends on destroying the power that doesn't want it to happen. Who doesn't want to see Lebanon in peace with Israel? Only Hezbollah. Okay. Now,
let's talk.
Wali Jumblat is quiet, doesn't say a word. The Sunni leadership in Tripoli doesn't say a word. The Sunni prime minister, Nawaf Salam, from the big Salam clan in Beirut, which was always, the pro-Arab nationalism and all this, he is supporting this. So what else do you need? It's only Hezbollah.
Okay, let me take you to another question, which is, you think the ceasefire is a bad idea? You think Bibi Netanyahu caved in to Donald Trump?
Sure, yeah.
And Donald Trump's language on social media actually rattled Bibi Netanyahu. That's out in public domain now.
Yeah. I prohibited him. I prohibit Israel from bombing and all this. It's like the boss and the servant.
Yes. And so, two questions. What does this mean for the future of Bibi Netanyahu and the future of US-Israeli relations? And mind you, we must remember that 40 out of 46 Democratic senators voted against military sale.
Yeah, I can give you many more examples like that about the Democratic Party. I just saw something about Michigan and all that, which is, look.
Michigan, they need the Arab vote.
But it is beyond just the Arab vote, because, if it is only about the Arab vote, it doesn't explain why in states in which there are no Arabs or Muslims, they still are.
Two data points there. I saw a poll that shows 80% of Democratic voters do not approve of Israeli action.
I think it was 75%, but yeah.
Okay, sure. 75%.
Yeah. But 81% of the Republicans support Israel. Look,
correct. And then the second thing is, and this is an important thing, is that the young
Yeah.
are
Oh yeah.
certainly,
Big
the young
generation.
have
Yeah.
turned against Israel.
Yeah. It turns
I,
against Israel. Look.
and I have friends whose children have not voted for Joe Biden in the previous election because they thought Joe Biden did not stand up to Israel.
Yes, the point is that, first of all, it's correct. Everything you say, it's absolutely correct. I wrote about it already 5 years ago or so. I wrote about it before, but in 2010 already, I published in 2012 in Jerusalem Post an article saying a new year's school year and old age rates. I mean, everything that is happening now is a result of processes, and the bipartisan support is not existing anymore. It's not the fault only of Netanyahu, but he added up to this. He did not create the problem. He just did not try to solve it. All this is true. But the fact of the matter is
look, I have heard from many Democrats that the way he behaved with Barack Obama at the beginning of he got allied far too closely with
but Barack Obama
Trump.
In 2009, when Netanyahu was the first time visiting the White House, he was humiliated by Obama. He was let to wait for his lunch with his children, and there was a lot of happening, but this is not the reason for what is happening. This is not the reason. The reason is not the relationship between one leader and another. The reason are demographic changes in America, the rise of new political forces, social media, the rise of the Muslim community, by the way, which is already today bigger than the Jewish community.
I mean, look at Zohran Mamdani.
Yeah, splits within the Jewish community and so on and so forth. So I agree with you about all that. But coming back to your first point, even within the framework of this situation between Netanyahu and Trump, we go now to Netanyahu and Trump personally, Israel under Netanyahu did not conduct the war in Lebanon in a proper way. He vacillated for almost a year. Hezbollah was on the initiative. The north of Israel was devastated. They finally took the initiative with the beeper and all that, and then whatever happened later on. And even in the current round, there was all the time, we do this as a message, we do this as a signal. Hezbollah needs to be weakened to the point where they cannot affect what the Lebanese state does. Okay, that's the formula. Now, I know it's a bigger formula than just saying dismantle Hezbollah. But 2 words are always easier to remember than 7 words. You understand it. But that's what it is. And Netanyahu waited and waited and waited. There were signals that Trump wants an end to all that for about 10 or 12 days when the war still continued in South Lebanon and Israel acted in a very slow way, like there is all the time in the world. There is never all the time in the world. So,
Joseph, if I'm hearing correctly, you are critiquing Bibi Netanyahu's military leadership here.
Look, Bibi Netanyahu, I need to tell you something about Israel. He's a brilliant, intelligent person. I've known him since 1988. We work together alongside him, under him. He is a brilliant, intelligent person. Something has happened at some point in time about his personal life, about all kinds of stuff. I don't want to get into all that. He definitely now is not the same Bibi Netanyahu of all the years. The fact is that Bibi Netanyahu today is committed to the relationship with Trump personally in a way that has never existed between Israeli leader and American leader. It never existed like that. The fact is that the dependence of Israel on America, as strong as it is not as absolute as it being presented today, to the point where you basically say Israel can't do this or can't do that, whatever it is, because of America. Israel did in the past things that America did not like, and things moved on. I will remind you, after 1981, when Menachem Begin destroyed the Iraqi reactor, Jane Kirkpatrick voted against Israel in the Security Council. And then she said later on, it was the one decision I regretted the most in my life. So, and Menachem Begin did something that he knew that Ronald Reagan would not like. I know the story about what happened there.
So what you are saying is that Israel has lost strategic autonomy. under Bibi Netanyahu.
Israel, unfortunately, is losing a great deal of its strategic independence.
I see. So what does this mean for the future of
It
Bibi
means to the
Netanyahu
future,
and of Israel?
it means two things. It means many things, but to be specific here, two things in particular. If Netanyahu continues to be prime minister until after the new elections in Israel, which can still be, despite all the polls and all the hoo-ha and all that, it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Until the end of Trump's term, this is the continuation of the situation. It will just worsen even further the relationship between Israel and the Democratic Party, and large part, by the way, of the Republican Party as well. That's the problem here.
Yeah, because Marjorie Taylor Greene, Steve Bannon,
but
and Tucker Carlson, these are all Make America Great Again MAGA crowd, and they do not support Israel.
These people are not the main problem, because they are the mouthpiece now, the loudspeakers of many other people who still cannot say in public it, in public. And I have a sense of it already for quite a few years, that a lot of the Republican support for Israel was very soft. And by the way, even among the evangelicals, it's soft. I mean, remember, since the beginning of this war, when have you seen hundreds of thousands of Christians supporting Israel in public, in demonstrations, in rallies, and all that? It's not their main item. Never mind what people say. It's not their main item. So even among the evangelicals, there is an erosion, unfortunately, in support for Israel. So coming back to your question, I remember the question. A change can still happen if there is a change of government in Israel, which is again 50% likelihood after these elections. The new government will not be anti-American, of course, never be anti-American, but it will still be a government that will be able to say to Donald Trump, look, we are not committed to the same level of obligation that you got from Netanyahu. It's a new government. Let's see what's going to happen. To the credit of Netanyahu, I should say, however, one thing, and I have to say it. He is successful in all kinds of ways in creating some kinds of regional alliances for Israel, which are very important. Even the relationship between Israel and the UAE, for example, are dramatically rising up in many ways. The alliance with Cyprus and Greece.
That may suffer now with the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, though.
Yeah, but not really. I don't think so. But also the relationship with Argentina, and hopefully when the young Bolsonaro will win the elections in Brazil, which may be the case, even though there are some troubles now with the Supreme Court in Brazil against, it's becoming... if Brazil and Argentina, the two main countries of South America, are moving to the very strong pro-Israel orbit, that's a very interesting development. So
you have regional alliances with Cyprus,
Cyprus, beyond that, and with a country that you know very well, it's called India, and so on and so forth. Look,
and Azerbaijan as well.
And Azerbaijan, I can give you other examples. So I say to the credit of Netanyahu, because I know that there is a tendency by people, are you pro-Netanyahu or anti-Netanyahu? It's not about Netanyahu or Trump separate from a bigger picture, a bigger combination of perspectives. So Netanyahu is Netanyahu, but look, I need to tell you, one of the greatest pleasure that I had when I had a relationship with Netanyahu was to discuss with him about books that we both read, and he was amazing in terms of understanding, in terms of realizing international forces and all that. What happened is a combination of factors, and now definitely it depends in Israel on bad people. Smotrich, Ben Gvir, you want me to continue?
I'm glad you mentioned them, because
no, of course, what do you think? Look,
they are right. I mean, they are authoritarian, and
they are bad people, and the dependence on the personal relations with Trump. That's the new element.
So what happens to Israel? That is set up.
Look, Israel is celebrating on the 22nd of April, its Independence Day, the 78th independence. A great successful venture. The Zionist movement has done wonders. That part of the fact why there is so much anti-Zionism is the success of the Zionist movement.
That is true, but Israel is also very divided as a country. as you
Yeah,
yourself have
that's
pointed out.
two Jews are always three synagogues. I mean, there's nothing new about that. Israel, look, Israel is divided, and it's the price of democracy, and it should have been different. And there are all kinds of things happening that
No, there's one thing, it's divided, but the polarization is quite intense between the
they're
religious and
polarizing
the
all over
secular.
the Western world, by the way, and we are part
Sure.
of it.
Sure.
And no, but I'm just saying it's not explaining it and justifying it because it's also a problem for others. But there is a problem of leadership in the Western world. There is a problem of lack of legitimacy. Look, imagine what is going to happen in America if Congress will continue to be divided by Democratic majority states will change the rules to have only Democrats elected and the Republicans. So even Congress would lose completely legitimacy. The Supreme Court is losing legitimacy. So the problem is in Western democracies. And Israel is part of it. There's no question about that. And because of the vulnerability of Israel altogether, it looks a bigger problem in Israel. On the other hand, when you see the motivation, the soldiers who fight and all that, you don't find in other countries. So let's look at the bigger picture. The Israeli economy is doing well. The stats are very interesting. I mean, the shekel.
So your argument
is less than 3 for a dollar.
Okay.
It's unbelievable,
So your argument, let me distill it, is that Bibi should go, and once Bibi goes, Israel will have its strategic independence.
No, my argument is that if Bibi goes,
you could have strategic independence.
A new government will have to find a new formula for relations with the US. By the way, the basis for the new relationships would not be to come back to what it used to be. That's dead.
Okay.
But
so the old US-Israeli... Let me just stop you there. You've said something major. You've just said the old US-Israeli relationship is dead and a new one will have to be born.
It has to be re-established, and the beginnings of it are those generals who say the best ally that we have, the best effective, it's one element of it. Another element of it would still be the fact that there are elements within the two parties that would be very, very upset if the sacrifice of Israel would lead to the rise of more radical elements from extreme left and extreme right and all that. So we'll see. I mean, there are all kinds of elements here that can be at play. But by the way, a lot depends on the elections in midterm because, for example, if the Democratic Party is winning the Congress again, I say if, good or bad, I leave to other people to judge. But if they win and the new Democratic majority will include so many progressives, there's no question that the next presidential candidate will be a progressive. The Republicans we might put the other extreme. So American political divisions will be such that they could lead to new alliances and so on and so forth. So, I mean, look, the old relationships are dead. D-E-A-D, dead. And we shall need to reestablish new type of relationships. It will be much easier, before you ask another question, it will be much, much easier without Netanyahu. But if he is elected again as Prime Minister of Israel, okay, that's what it is. Democracy at play.
All right, Joseph, on that note, on that high note, we'll have you back again. Always enjoyable talking to you. You're so full of life, and our viewers should know that you've been going to the hospital and coming back and still making time for us.
Don't tell my secrets. I'm talking to you from a wheelchair, Sitting in a
that is why chapeau for
just imagine and the energy I'm so dynamic in a wheelchair, what it would be without the wheelchair. Take care, my friend.
Thank you.
Happy birthday for Israel. Take care. Bye.
Happy birthday to Israel. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.